Okay, so in our last video we reconstructed our lighting and GI passes from raw elements. Now we're going to do the same with reflections and refractions. So we're going to create another shuffle node, tab, typing shuffle. I pop that out. I'm going to use our preset and change this to raw reflections. What this gives us is what is being reflected in that layer. Spacebar to full screen that. What it doesn't give us is how much that's being reflected. That's why it looks kind of weird. So if I copy that and paste it, we're going to create our reflection filter. Pop that out. Reflection filter. So we shuffle that to the top of the deck and we view that. So what we see here is quite interesting. We have lampshades and the glass. Now anything that's not metallic will have what's called Fresnel, which means the angle relative to the viewer will influence the amount of reflections visible. So this Fresnel effect, which you set in V-Ray, is shown in the filter. You can see that it's more reflective on the sides than facing the camera. Now metallic objects shouldn't have Fresnel, and in fact this brass lampshade base doesn't. And of course it also has a color, so all those reflections are going to get that brassy golden color, and the cap is going to have that yellow color. So in order to recreate our reflection pass, what we need to do is type tab, multiply, and that creates a merge, and so we have our reflection pass. Now then we need to tab and plus, and we're going to add that to our composite. So we're starting to get our reflections. And so now we can do the exact same thing with our refractions. And because it's exactly the same thing, we can just Control C, copy, move down, Control V, paste. Change this, pop it out, change this to raw refraction, close, which gives us what is being refracted, but again not how much. That's why the lampshade is refracting just as much as the glass. And the refraction filter, so let's create the refraction filter, which is essentially the amount of refraction which we've set in V-Ray, and of course in some cases it varies depending on the angle, and in some cases it doesn't. So if we add that on here, we will get the exact same result as we would have got in the basic workflow by just adding our lighting to our GI, to our refractions, and our reflections. So what do we gain by this? An advantage here is that we can, as we've separated the lights from the raw, from the diffuse, we could change the color of the actual materials, although we would want to use masks to separate particular material, but we could just give them all a slightly pink materials, but they're being lit by the original colored lights. We could also keep the GI as it is, but imagine that we have slightly pink lights. So all our lights are slightly pink. Again, we might want to think about having the moonlight and the lamplight separate, but slightly pink lights lighting the original coloured material. That will give us a different result to modifying the lighting pass in the basic composite. So now let's move on and do our refractions. Now refractions are almost the same as reflections, so we're going to go in the same order. We can reconnect these, and all we need to do is select this raw reflection. I'll pop it up, change it from raw reflection to raw refraction, change this from reflection filter to refraction filter. Let's just make sure that we don't get confused and put one with the other. So there we have that. Now the reflection filter gives us how refractive the object is, essentially. So and also the shape of it. So again, we can blur them. In this model, we can actually blur our refractions without having them bleed out. Now, we could also grade them as an example. We could make them a little bit murkier, bring down the gamma, or we could change the color in some other way. Try experimenting for yourselves to see the difference between applying grades in this setup with raw passes to basic passes. The remaining passes don't change at all from the basic back to beauty setup. Add the specular. Copy paste. Add the caustics and paste again, and add the subsurface scattering. We don't have any self-illumination atmosphere or background, so if we look at that, that should be identical to our original beauty render. And that's it. Thank you.